I never thought my life would turn into a nightmare. But here I am, sitting in a police interrogation room, my knuckles bruised and my heart racing. How did I get here? It all started on a Tuesday evening, just like any other. Also, I thought. I pulled into our driveway, noticing the eerie quiet that seemed to blanket our normally bustling home. As I stepped out of my car, the weight of my briefcase felt heavier than usual. Something was off. I could feel it in my gut. The moment I walked through the front door, the tension hit me like a wall. My wife, Sarah, was hunched over her phone in the kitchen, furiously typing away. She barely looked up when I entered. "Hey," I called out, trying to sound casual. "Everything okay?" Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes wide for a split second before she composed herself. "Oh, hey, honey. Yeah, everything's fine. Just work stuff." I nodded, not buying it for a second. Sarah had been acting strange for weeks now. Late nights at the office, hushed phone calls, and a general air of secrecy that was so unlike her. The thought of infidelity had crossed my mind more than once, but I'd been pushing it away, not wanting to face that possibility. "Where's Tommy?" I asked, referring to our 12-year-old son. Sarah shrugged, already back to her phone. "In his room, I guess. He's been quiet all afternoon." I frowned, heading upstairs to check on him. Tommy's door was closed, which was unusual. He typically left it open, blasting music or the sounds of whatever video game he was obsessed with that week. I knocked gently. "Tommy, you in there, bud?" There was a shuffling sound, then a muffled, "Yeah, Dad." "Come in." I pushed the door open to find Tommy sitting on his bed, a comic book open in front of him. But his eyes weren't on the pages. They were red-rimmed and puffy, like he'd been crying. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, sitting down next to him. "Bad day at school." Tommy shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "It's nothing. I'm fine." That's when I noticed it. As he reached to close his comic book, the sleeve of his t-shirt rode up, revealing an angry purple bruise on his forearm. "Whoa, hold on," I said, gently taking his arm. "What happened here?" Tommy yanked his arm away, pulling his sleeve down. "It's nothing, Dad. I just fell during gym class." I didn't believe him for a second. The bruise looked too deliberate, too much like a handprint. But Tommy climbed up, refusing to say anything more. I left his room feeling sick to my stomach. Something was very, very wrong in my house, and I was determined to find out what. Over the next few days, I watched Sarah and Tommy like a hawk. Sarah continued her secretive behavior, staying out late and making excuses. One night, I pretended to be asleep when she came home well after midnight. The scent of unfamiliar cologne clung to her clothes as she slipped into bed beside me. Tommy, meanwhile, became more and more withdrawn. I noticed more bruises, always in places that could be easily hidden by clothing. When I tried to talk to him, he'd shut down or make up flimsy excuses. It was killing me to see my once vibrant, happy kid turn into this shell of himself. Then came the call from Tommy's school. He'd had an emotional outburst in class, throwing a desk and screaming at his teacher. When I arrived to pick him up, the principal looked at me with a mixture of concern and suspicion. "Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice low. "Is everything all right at home?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Of course, I lied. "Why do you ask?" She hesitated. "Tommy's behavior has been concerning lately. And these bruises." I cut her off, suddenly angry. Not at her, but at the situation. At my own helplessness. "I appreciate your concern, but we're fine. I'll talk to Tommy." On the drive home, I finally broke through Tommy's walls. It started with a simple question. "Who hurt you, son?" And then, like a dam bursting, it all came pouring out. Tommy sobbed as he told me about the man he'd seen with his mother. How this man had threatened him, hurt him, told him that if he ever said anything, he'd hurt me too. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Tommy's voice was small, broken. He said he'd kill you, Dad. And then Mom said I was making it up, that I was just trying to cause trouble. She said if I told anyone, she'd send me away. I pulled the car over, my vision blurring with tears and rage. I unbuckled my seatbelt and pulled Tommy into a fierce hug. "I'm so sorry, son." I choked out. "I'm so sorry, but I promise you, no one is ever going to hurt you again." That night, I confronted Sarah. It didn't go well. She denied everything, accused me of turning Tommy against her. When I showed her the bruises on our son's body, she broke down, admitting that she knew about the abuse but had chosen to ignore it. "I love him," she sobbed, referring to her lover. "He said he'd leave me if I didn't control Tommy." I didn't know what else to do. I've never felt such disgust and rage in my life. I told her, in no uncertain terms, that she was never to see Tommy again. I would be filing for divorce and full custody. She screamed, she pleaded, but I was unmovable. My son's safety came first. The next few days were a blur of lawyers and police reports. Tommy and I stayed at a hotel, not wanting to be in the house with Sarah. I was in the process of finding us a new place to live when everything went to hell. We'd gone back to the house to pack up some of our things. I thought Sarah would be at work, but as we pulled up, I saw a man standing on our front porch. He was tall, well-built, with a smug expression that made my blood boil. I knew instantly that this was the bastard who had hurt my son. "Tommy, stay in the car," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "But Dad." "Stay in the car." I got out, slamming the door behind me. The man on the porch grinned, spreading his arms wide. Well, he drawled, "if isn't the cuckold and his little snitch." I saw red. "You've got 5 seconds to get off my property before I make you regret ever being born." He laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Oh, tough guy, huh?" No wonder Sarah came running to me. She needed a real man, not sympathetic. I don't remember consciously deciding to move. One moment I was standing by my car, the next I was on top of him, my fists connecting with his face over and over. All the rage, all the pain of the past weeks exploded out of me. I heard Tommy scream from the car, but it was like I was underwater. All I could focus on was making this monster pay for what he'd done to my family. When I finally came back to myself, the man was a bloody mess on my front porch. He was conscious, barely, staring up at me with terror in his eyes. I leaned down, my voice a low growl. "If you ever come near my son again, if you so much as think about him, I will end you. Do you understand me?" He nodded weakly, blood bubbling from his split lip. I straightened up, my hands shaking. That's when I noticed the police cars pulling up, their sirens wailing. Sarah must have called them. She was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered as the officers approached me. "I'm so sorry." I didn't resist as they cuffed me. I caught Tommy's eye as they led me to the squad car. He looked terrified, but there was something else there too. Relief, maybe. Pride. "It's okay, son," I called out. "Everything's going to be okay now." And sitting here in this interrogation room, waiting for my lawyer to arrive, I realized that I meant it. For the first time in weeks, I feel like I can breathe. Whatever happens next, I know I did what I had to do to protect my son. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The door opens and my lawyer walks in. He's a small, wiry man with thick glasses and a no-nonsense attitude. I've known Frank for years, but I've never been so glad to see him as I am right now. "All right, John," he says, sitting down across from me. "I need you to tell me exactly what happened, and then I need you to shut up and let me do the talking." I nod, taking a deep breath. As I recount the events of the past few weeks, Frank's expression grows increasingly grim. When I finish, he sits back, rubbing his temples. "Jesus, John," he mutters. "You've really stepped in it this time." "I know," I reply, my voice hoarse. "But Frank, you should have seen what that bastard did to Tommy. The bruises, the fear in his eyes. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing." Frank holds up a hand. "I get it. Believe me, I do." But the law doesn't always see things the way a parent does. We're looking at assault charges here, maybe worse if this guy decides to press the issue. I feel the weight of the situation settling on my shoulders. What do we do? For now, we focus on getting you released, Frank says, gathering his papers. Then we start building your defense. We'll focus on the abuse your son suffered, your wife's negligence, the emotional distress you were under. It won't be easy, but I think we can make a case for temporary insanity or extreme emotional disturbance. I nod, trying to process it all. What about Tommy? And Sarah? Frank's expression softens slightly. Child Protective Services will probably get involved. Given the circumstances, I think we have a good shot at getting you full custody. As for Sarah, well, she's got her own legal troubles to worry about now. As Frank stands to leave, he pauses, putting a hand on my shoulder. John, I need you to promise me something. No matter what happens next, no matter what Sarah or that guy might say or do, you keep your cool. Got it. We can't afford any more outbursts. I nod, feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. I got it, Frank. Thanks. After Frank leaves, I'm left alone with my thoughts. The gravity of the situation hits me full force. I might go to jail. I might lose everything I've worked for. But then I think of Tommy, of the relief in his eyes when he saw me stand up to his abuser, and I know I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. Hours pass before they finally release me on bail. As I step out of the police station, I'm surprised to see Tommy waiting for me, along with my sister Karen. Tommy runs to me, throwing his arms around my waist. I hug him tight, breathing in the scent of his hair, feeling his small body shake with sobs. It's okay, buddy, I murmur. I'm here. I've got you. Karen approaches, her face a mix of concern and relief. John, what the hell happened? I shake my head. Not here. Let's go home. It's only when we're in the car that I realize I don't know where home is anymore. I can't go back to the house, not with Sarah there. Karen seems to read my mind. You and Tommy are staying with me for now, she says firmly. I've already got the guest room set up. I nod gratefully, too exhausted to argue. As we drive, Tommy falls asleep against my side. I stroke his hair, marveling at how peaceful he looks. It's the first time in weeks I've seen him truly relaxed. At Karen's house, we settle Tommy into bed. Once he's asleep, Karen and I sit at her kitchen table, cups of strong coffee in front of us. I tell her everything, watching as her expression shifts from shock to anger to sorrow. Oh, John, she says when I finish. I'm so sorry. I had no idea things were so bad. I shrug, feeling the weight of the past weeks pressing down on me. Neither did I, until it was almost too late. Karen reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. What are you going to do now? I take a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. First thing tomorrow, I'm calling a locksmith. I'm changing the locks on the house and throwing Sarah out. She can stay with her boyfriend for all I care. Then I'm filing for divorce and full custody of Tommy. Karen nods approvingly. Good. You know I'm here for you both, whatever you need. I manage a small smile. Thanks, sis. I don't know what I'd do without you. The next morning, I leave Tommy with Karen and head back to the house. My hands are shaking as I pull into the driveway, memories of the previous day's violence flashing through my mind. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. Sarah is waiting for me when I walk in. She looks terrible, her eyes red and puffy, her hair a mess. For a moment, I feel a pang of the old affection I used to have for her. Then I remember what she allowed to happen to our son, and my heart hardens. John, she says, her voice trembling. Please, can we talk about this? I shake my head, brushing past her to start packing up my and Tommy's things. There's nothing to talk about, Sarah. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. She follows me from room to room, alternating between pleading and angry outbursts. I tune her out, focusing on the task at hand. It's only when I start packing up Tommy's room that she grabs my arm, forcing me to look at her. You can't take him away from me, she cries. I'm his mother. I shake her off, my voice low and dangerous. A mother protects her child. You stood by and let that monster hurt our son. As far as I'm concerned, you stopped being his mother the moment you chose that bastard over Tommy's safety. Sarah collapses to the floor, sobbing. I feel a twinge of pity, but I push it aside. I can't afford to let my guard down, not when Tommy's well-being is at stake. The locksmith arrives as I'm loading the last of our things into my car. Sarah watches from the window, her face a mask of despair. I don't look at her as I hand the locksmith my credit card. Change every lock in the house, I tell him, and don't give her a key, no matter what she says. He nods, looking uncomfortable but professional. As he works, I stand in the driveway, staring at the house that was once my home. It looks the same as it always has, the neat lawn, the flower beds Sarah lovingly tended, the tire swing I put up for Tommy when he was 5. But now it feels alien, tainted by betrayal and violence. Sarah comes out as I'm about to leave. She looks small and broken, nothing like the confident woman I married. Where will I go? She asks, her voice barely above a whisper. I shrug, feeling a mix of anger and pity. That's not my problem anymore, Sarah. You made your bed. Now lie in it. As I drive away, I catch a glimpse of her in my rearview mirror. She's standing in the driveway, arms wrapped around herself, watching me leave. For a moment, I'm tempted to turn back, to try and salvage something from the wreckage of our marriage. But then I think of Tommy, of the trust and love in his eyes when I promised to protect him, and I keep driving. The next few weeks are a whirlwind of legal meetings, therapy sessions for Tommy, and trying to establish some kind of new normal. We stay with Karen, but I know we can't impose on her forever. I start looking for a new place for Tommy and me, somewhere we can start fresh. Tommy has nightmares almost every night. I often wake to the sound of his screams, rush into his room to hold him and assure him that he's safe. During the day, he's quiet and withdrawn, but I see flashes of his old self sometimes, when we're playing video games or when I help him with his homework. It gives me hope that with time and love, my son will heal. The legal proceedings drag on, a constant source of stress and anxiety. Frank does his best to keep me updated, but the wheels of justice turn slowly. Sarah tries to contact me several times, leaving tearful voicemails and sending long rambling emails. I ignore them all, focusing instead on Tommy and our future. One afternoon, about a month after the incident, I'm sitting in a coffee shop near Frank's office, waiting for him to finish up with another client. I'm scrolling through apartment listings on my phone when I hear a familiar voice that makes my blood run cold. Well, if it isn't the family man himself. I look up to see him standing there, Sarah's lover, the man who hurt my son. His face is still bruised from our encounter, but he's smirking, clearly trying to get a rise out of me. I feel my fists clench involuntarily. You've got some nerve showing your face around me, I growl, standing up slowly. He holds up his hands in mock surrender. Hey, easy there, Tiger. We're in public. Wouldn't want to add another assault charge to your record, would you? I take a deep breath, Frank's words echoing in my head. Keep your cool. Don't give them any ammunition. What do you want? I ask, my voice low and controlled. He leans in, his smirk widening. I just wanted to thank you, actually. You see, now that you're out of the picture, Sarah, and I can finally be together openly. No more sneaking around. I feel a wave of nausea hit me, the thought of this monster anywhere near my son again. If you so much as look at Tommy again, I start, but he cuts me off with a laugh. Oh, don't worry about that. I have no interest in playing daddy to your sniveling brat. Sarah and I are thinking of starting fresh. Maybe have a kid of our own. Something in me snaps. Before I can think, I've grabbed him by the collar, slamming him against the wall. The coffee shop goes silent, all eyes on us. Listen to me very carefully, I hiss, my face inches from his. You stay away from my son. You stay away from me. If I ever see you again, if I even hear that you've been in the same zip code as Tommy, I will end you. Do you understand? Fear flickers in his eyes, but he tries to maintain his bravado. You're insane, he spits. No wonder Sarah left you. I release him, stepping back. Get out, I say, my voice eerily calm. Now. He straightens his shirt, trying to regain his composure. As he turns to leave, he throws one last barb over his shoulder. You know, your kid cried for his mommy when I hit him. Pathetic, really. I see red. The next thing I know, I'm being pulled off him by two burly guys from a coffee shop. He's on the ground, blood pouring from his nose, screaming about pressing charges. I'm shaking, tears streaming down my face. He hurt my son. I keep saying, over and over. He hurt my little boy. The police arrive, and I'm handcuffed again. As they lead me out, I see Frank rushing up, his face a mask of concern and frustration. For damn it, John, he mutters. What did I tell you about keeping your cool? I hang my head, adrenaline fading, leaving me feeling hollow and scared. I'm sorry, Frank. He was talking about Tommy, about hurting him again. I lost it. Frank sighs, rubbing his temples. All right, don't say anything else. Let me handle this. As I'm put in the back of the police car, all I can think about is Tommy. What will happen to him if I go to jail? Will Sarah get custody? The thought makes me sick. The next few hours are a blur of questioning and paperwork. Frank works his magic, somehow convincing the cops to release me with just a warning. As we leave the station, he turns to me, his expression serious. John, you've got to get it together, he says. I know you're under a lot of stress, but you can't keep lashing out like this. You're playing right into their hands. I nod, feeling ashamed and angry at myself. I know, Frank. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. He softens slightly. Look, I get it. What that bastard did to Tommy, what Sarah allowed to happen, it's enough to make anyone lose their mind. But you've got to be smart about this. Tommy needs you. You can't help him if you're behind bars. His words hit home. I think of Tommy waiting for me at Karen's house, probably worried sick. I've let him down again. You're right, I say, straightening up. No more outbursts, I promise. Frank nods approvingly. Good. Now, let's focus on the case. I think we've got a strong argument for full custody, especially given Sarah's negligence and this guy's history of violence. But we need to make sure you're presenting a stable, responsible image to the court. We spend the next hour discussing strategy, going over depositions and character witnesses. By the time we're done, I feel more focused and determined than I have in weeks. As I drive back to Karen's house, I rehearse what I'm going to say to Tommy. How do you explain to a 12-year-old that his dad lost control again? That I almost ruined everything we've been fighting for? But when I walk in the door, Tommy takes one look at my face and seems to understand. He wraps his arms around me, burying his face in my chest. It's okay, Dad, he mumbles. We're going to be okay. I hold him tight, marveling at his strength and resilience. In that moment, I make a silent vow. No matter what happens, no matter how hard things get, I will be the father Tommy deserves. I will protect him, support him, and love him unconditionally. As we stand there in Karen's living room, I feel a glimmer of hope for the first time in months. We've been through hell, Tommy and I, but we're still standing. And as long as we have each other, we can face whatever comes next. The custody hearing is set for next month. Frank assures me we have a strong case, but I can't help feeling nervous. The thought of losing Tommy, of him being forced to live with Sarah and that monster, keeps me up at night. But for now, I focus on the present, on helping Tommy with his homework, on making sure he eats properly and gets enough sleep, on being there for him when the nightmares come, holding him close and assuring him that he's safe. One night, as I'm tucking him into bed, Tommy looks up at me with those big brown eyes that always seem to see right through me. Dad, he says hesitantly, Are you sorry you hit that man? The one who hurt me? I pause, considering my words carefully. I'm sorry I lost control. I say finally, violence isn't the answer, Tommy. I shouldn't have let my anger get the best of me. He nods, seeming to mull this over. But I'm kind of glad you did, he admits in a small voice. It made me feel safe, like you'd always protect me. I feel a lump form in my throat. I will always protect you, buddy, I say, pulling him into a hug. Always. But I need to do it the right way, okay? By being here for you, by fighting for you in court. Not by losing my temper. Tommy nods against my chest. I love you, Dad, he mumbles, already half asleep. I love you too, kiddo, I whisper, kissing the top of his head. More than anything in this world. As I leave his room, I feel a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow, I'll call Frank and see if we can move up the custody hearing. I'll double down on my efforts to find us a new place to live. And I'll continue to be the rock that Tommy needs, the father he deserves. The road ahead won't be easy. There will be more challenges, more temptations to lose control. But with Tommy by my side, I know I can face anything. We've been through the fire, and we've come out stronger. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. As I settle into bed, I allow myself a small smile. For the first time in a long time, I'm not dreading tomorrow. Instead, I'm looking forward to it. Because each new day is another chance to show Tommy how much he's loved, another opportunity to build a life we both deserve. The custody hearing arrives faster than I expected. The morning of, I stand in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie with shaking hands. Tommy appears in the doorway, already dressed in his best clothes. You look nice, Dad, he says, giving me a small smile. I turn to him, my heart swelling with love and pride. So do you, buddy. Are you ready for this? He nods, his expression serious. I'm a little scared, he admits. But I know you'll be there. I kneel down to his level, putting my hands on his shoulders. That's right. I'll be there every step of the way. And no matter what happens in that courtroom, nothing will change between us. You're my son, and I love you more than anything. Tommy hugs me tight, and I have to blink back tears. We stay like that for a moment, drawing strength from each other. The courthouse is intimidating. All marble and echoing hallways. Frank meets us outside, his briefcase bulging with documents. He gives Tommy a warm smile, and me a reassuring nod. We've got this, John, he says confidently. Just remember what we practiced. Stay calm, be honest, and let me handle any curveballs. I nod, taking a deep breath. As we enter the courtroom, I see Sarah sitting at the other table with her lawyer. She looks pale and drawn, and for a moment, I feel a pang of sympathy. Then I remember the bruises on Tommy's body, the fear in his eyes, and my resolve hardens. The judge enters, and everyone rises. As the proceedings begin, I focus on staying calm and answering questions clearly and honestly. When it's Sarah's turn to testify, I force myself to listen without reacting, even as she tries to paint herself as a victim, claiming she was afraid of her lover and didn't know how to leave. The hardest part is when Tommy has to speak. He's brave, answering questions about the abuse without flinching. But I can see the toll it's taking on him, the way his hands shake and his voice wavers. It takes everything in me not to rush to his side and wrap him in my arms. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the judge is ready to make her decision. My heart is pounding so hard, I can barely hear her words at first. But then I catch the phrase full custody and restraining order against the mother and her partner, and I feel a wave of relief so intense it nearly knocks me off my feet. We've won. Tommy is safe. He's with me. As we leave the courthouse, Tommy's hand firmly in mine. I feel like I can finally breathe again. The sun is shining, and for the first time in months, the future looks bright. What now, Dad? Tommy asks as we walk to the car. I smile down at him, feeling a sense of peace and possibility. Now, buddy, we start our new life. Together. That night, as I tuck Tommy into bed in our new apartment, I can see the change in him already. There's a lightness to him that's been missing for too long. Dad, he says as I'm about to turn off the light. Yeah, buddy. He hesitates for a moment, then says, I'm glad it's just us now. I smile, feeling a lump in my throat. Me too, Tommy, me too. As I close his door, I lean against the wall, overwhelmed by emotion. The past few months have been the hardest of my life, but standing here now, Knowing that Tommy is safe and that we have a fresh start, I wouldn't change a thing. We've been through hell, but we've come out stronger. And whatever challenges the future holds, I know we'll face them together as father and son, as a family.